Hello and welcome to Let's Talk Criterion, your channel exclusively previewing and reviewing new and forthcoming titles to the collection. In this edition, we take a look at Luis Buñuel's 1961 film Viridiana, getting an upgrade in the collection on 4K UHD. Luis Buñuel's film Elle came to the collection in 2025, adding to his existing list of titles in the collection. This director directed 21 films in total in Mexico, the country that became his home. Towards the end of this period, the great master of surrealism would work with two of his most important collaborators, the husband and wife team of Gustavo Alestristra and the actress Silvia Pinal, and together they would produce this film. The name Viridiana is a Spanish name, but this film wasn't filmed in Mexico, but in Spain. And of course, because of one specific scene in the film, more about that later, it was outright banned in Spain and Italy by the incensed Franco regime and the Catholic Church. The film won the Palme d'Or at Cannes. Now, the film is loosely based on the 1895 novel written by Benito Pérez Galdós, that's Halma. Viridiana Silvia Pinal is a naive nun, called to her uncle Don Jaime's home for one last visit, her uncle played in the film by Fernando Rey. Don Jaime, though, has plans. Viridiana has an extraordinary resemblance to his late wife, and Don Jaime intends to first get her to cosplay his wife and then marry him. Or, failing that, to drug her and rape her. Guilt stops him from the rape, but doesn't stop him from claiming that he did it, a lie he instantly and fatally regrets, but which leads her to abandon her dreams of becoming a nun. In the aftermath, Viridiana and her cousin Jaime's bastard son, Jorge, that's Francisco Rabal, divide the estate, with Viridiana aiming to continue her religious ideals through excessively generous charity work with quietly resentful local paupers, who she has a vision of turning the community into a religious commune. However, this doesn't turn out well for her. Viridiana benches much of the surrealism of Buñuel's most famous work, but it loses none of his acute social satire and the ability to inject the absurd with sharp, dark humour. It makes Viridiana a startlingly complex work, brilliantly assembled by an artist where every frame has a different idea, all of which comes together in a darkly entertaining whole. It's not hard, though, to see why the strictly Catholic fascist Spain found the film so outrageous, with its mocking of religious imagery, from the crucifix that becomes a flick knife to the famous scene of the paupers forming a drunken pose-perfect tableau of Da Vinci's The Last Supper. Its acknowledgement of a host of fetishes and perversions among the upper classes, orgies, feet, hinted necrophilia, incest, and the utter ineffectiveness of any system, no matter how charitable, to control the human spirit, with the poor frequently resentful under their veneer of deferential gratitude. Viridiana splits neatly into two separate acts, both revolving around a complex relationship with guilt and how it guides our actions. Don Jaime, a superb performance here of corrupted grandeur from Fernando Rey, is a lonely man, plagued with guilt and regret over his wife's death, locking himself away in a time-locked country pile, almost like a perverted Miss Havisham. In private, he admires her clothes, which he blasphemously keeps like holy relics, and admires his feet in her shoes. He's fascinated by Viridiana's resemblance to his late wife and fantasizes that she might be persuaded to renounce the cloth and live with him as his wife. Now, with the convenience of his servant, Ramana, an equally lonely, repressed soul, tenderly played in the film with a burgeoning sexual desire by Margarita Lozano, he guilt-trips Viridiana into dressing for one night in his wife's bridal clothes. He drugs her drink and takes her to bed. He even arranges the sleeping Viridiana into the exact pose his wife had when she was before him, adding hints of necrophilia to an already disgusting assault. Shame, of course, stops him from committing the actual deed itself, and guilt then corrupts both of them. Inheriting her uncle's home alongside playboy cousin Jorge, that's his bastard son, who he has barely met, Viridiana redirects this guilt into a commune for the poor and needy, where charity work and faith sit side by side. Viridiana isn't cruel, though, about its characters. It looks at them as real people, with faults and virtues, some good and some bad. It's also remarkably clear-eyed about charity. There's something performative about Viridiana's efforts, as well as a clear sense it is as much for her as it is for the welfare of the beneficiaries. Now, those beneficiaries are a brilliant series of pen portraits of people who take offered charity, but resent the attitudes that come with it. The working classes are not passively grateful for religious charity, but they are smart enough to take a meal ticket when offered. No wonder the church was furious. Viridiana ruthlessly exposes the lip service the downtrodden give religious charity, while refusing to reshape their lives and views according to instruction. The peasants remain earthy, irreverent, and full of their own pleasures and prejudices. Now, it's in this part of the film that the scene that caused the controversy takes place. Buñuel decides to stage a frozen tableau of Da Vinci's The Last Supper. Now, this incensed the church and caused the film to be banned in Spain, and funnily enough, the ban went beyond Spain and into the UK. A Surrey council also banned the film from being screened in its cinemas. It only happened a few times, of course, through history, with films featuring religious figures, practices or iconography. The other examples to come to mind are Ken Russell's The Devils, Ralph Bakassi Fritz's The Cat, and Monty Python's Life of Brian, of course. Incidentally, that's soon to join the collection. According to executive producer Pere Portobello, Spanish authorities tried to have the original negative burned, and only survived because it was with a foreign company who had done some post-production work. Now, the film wasn't released in Spain until 1977, 2 years after Franco's death, when Buñuel was 77 years old himself. Cruelty is also shown in Viridiana, like in the scene where Jorge rescues a poor dog being forced to walk along at the speed of a moving cart. He buys the dog. Buñuel then pans across to another identical dog running behind the cart. Who was this charity for? The dog, or for him? The peasants of Viridiana, perhaps? And did this one act change anything at all? And for some charity, it's entirely self-serving. Viridiana visits Don Jaime solely out of thanks for his charity in paying for her time in the convent. Surely an act only carried out for his own perverted reasons. Now, none of this is what the church or the Spanish state at the time wanted to hear. A downtrodden class that isn't grateful to its leaders for lifting them up, but resents them for their patronising strictures. Lords of the manor, one of whom is a lonely pervert. The second, a libidinous playboy who sleeps with multiple women. A deeply religious woman who's completely naive and fails utterly. What an ending. And an ending Buñuel was ordered to change from the script, and in doing so, made even more suggestive and blasphemous. Now, the Spanish Board of Censors rejected the original ending to the film, which depicted Viridiana entering Jorge's room and slowly closing the door behind her. A new ending was then written and accepted that, according to some film historians, is considered even more debauched, albeit less explicit, though, than the first ending. This new ending implies a ménage à trois involving Jorge, Ramona and Viridiana. Now, this new ending of the film uses a piece of tawdry modern popular music playing on the gramophone, which had been featured throughout the film, only playing pious music. An amazing juxtaposition here from the outdated to the modern. And this plays right out to the fin card at the end of the film. Viridiana is a stunning condemnation of the flaws in an entire system caught in a brilliant parable. It's superbly directed by Buñuel, and by now, of course, he was a master of camera work and editing, with a beautifully judged performance in it by Silvia Pinal, who makes Viridiana someone we deeply admire, even as every decision she makes seems to doom her for disaster. Now, it's a challenging, involving and complex work, and infinitely rewarding for reviewing and patient consideration. No wonder Spanish critics in 2016 named this film the greatest Spanish film ever made. This is a 4K restoration, and the blacks remain strong and striking throughout against the stark whites, sometimes in fact having an almost bleached look. But that was how it was shot. The sound is a mono soundtrack, and that's all it really needs. And the film's minus Dolby Vision HDR, but to be honest, it doesn't really need it. The film marked Buñuel's return to making films in Spain, well into the current reign of the dictator at the time, Francisco Franco, after more than 2 decades of taking refuge in the US and directing in Mexico. Now, the 4K restoration was screened in November of last year at New York's Film Forum, and our shots come from the trailer for the restoration screening, but they're in HD only. The film comes to the collection as a 4K UHD and Blu-ray combo, with the film on the 4K UHD and the Blu-ray with the film and these special features. A new 4K digital restoration with uncompressed mono soundtrack. Interviews with actor Silvia Pinal and the film scholar Richard Porton. Excerpts from a 1964 episode of Cinéaste de notre temps on director Luis Buñuel's early career. Trailer, and an essay written by the film scholar Michael Wood, and an interview with Buñuel. And the cover art is designed by Eric Skillman, a regular contributor to Criterion. Winner of the Palme d'Or at the 1961 Cannes Film Festival, Viridiana is as audacious today as it ever was. The film has a running time of 91 minutes, it's in black and white, and has a 1:66:1 aspect ratio, and it releases in the US only on Tuesday the 10th of March as existing Spine 332. And it's also worth mentioning that the popular physical media distributor Radiance released Nothing is Sacred. Now, that's a set of 3 Buñuel films, Viridiana, The Exterminating Angel and Simon of the Desert. That came out last year, and included, of course, in this was the 4K restoration of Viridiana, all on Blu-ray. In the next edition of Let's Talk Criterion, we'll be taking a look at the 1983 film Testament, a post-apocalyptic drama starring Jane Alexander as a mother in the wake of nuclear devastation. So until then, from me, as always, it's goodbye, and above all, good Criterion viewing.